Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. As usual, my friends, how is everybody doing today? Trust all's fine. Well, who do we have here? Michael Rutnin, welcome aboard. Brige, MCP, welcome aboard, as well as AVQ, welcome aboard. Folks, we are going to have a good one for you today. Look, folks, I don't know, did anybody saw the DNC last night? I saw the DNC. I thought it was kind of entertaining. I thought it was pretty cool. What's your thoughts on it? Of course, there's a whole lot that we really want to do that we haven't really done, etc., etc., etc. But hey, what can I say? Anyhow, we have a long program for you today, so let's go ahead and let's see. If my mouse will work, we can go ahead and get busy as soon as my mouse starts working. Hey, mouse, where are you? Where are you? Folks, my mouse isn't working and I'm dead in the waters without my mouse. You watched it. Yeah, I hear you. Hey, the mouse came back. The mouse came back. Okay, let's go ahead and, let's go ahead and get to the show. Title of the show today, Democrats Better for Economy. Yes, Democrats are better for the economy. Don't let anybody fool you otherwise. AOC did it. Indivisible, Houston, Daniel Cohen on DNC, and more. The economy does better under Democrats. So why does Trump lead in the polls when it comes to the economy? I don't know. Indivisible, Houston President Daniel Cohen speaks on the DNC and much more. And like I said before, AOC, she used they gave her 60 seconds. It looked like she took 90 seconds. And you know what? She made effective use of that 90 seconds. Well, you know what? She gave the progressive message in about 60 seconds. So now she used her 60 seconds appropriately. So, did you know the economy does better under Democrats? So why do so many believe Trump's and Republicans are better for the economy? That's punto numero uno, subject number one. Subject number two. AOC got just 60 seconds to speak. She took 90. She detailed the entire progressive movement in that time. Número tres, millennials and Gen Zs get it more so than most. Of course, all our baby boomers and older Gen Xers that are common here on our show, as well as our millennials and Gen Xers, all you guys on this show know exactly what we're talking about and know exactly how things get done. And last point, Daniel Cohen has a great conversation on the DNC activism and more. May Wood, welcome aboard as well. Welcome aboard as well. Okay, we are going to start getting busy. The first thing that I want to show you has to do with the economy. You guys remember a few days ago, I told you I was pretty pissed that people are still showing a 10-point lead for Donald Trump just for the economy. And earlier on, Katie Tur, along with Michael Steele, they gave a particular reason why it is, okay? But I'm going to play this one here, and then I'm going to expand on it after. So here we go. There we go. Recently, I played a piece where we spoke about Biden having a 10-point deficit. In other words, Donald Trump is 10 points ahead of him in the economy. But, you know, all studies that are done show that the economy, irrespective of when normalized for just about everything, economy does better under Democrats. That's not hard to believe if you understand economics. But I tell you what, let me just play this piece that they did on MSNBC with Katie Tur, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Conventional wisdom holds that Republican presidents are better for the economy than Democrats. That idea is repeatedly underscored in polling, even when it doesn't seem to make sense. In a brand new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll, Biden is up 9 points nationally and leading on most issues, except one of the biggest issues, the economy. He still trails the president by 10 points. Now, the economy means different things to different people, and presidents really have very little to do with economic growth. But for years, some economists have been challenging the idea that Republicans handle it better. In a widely cited Princeton study from 2013, researchers concluded, quote, the U.S. economy has performed better when the president of the United States is a Democrat rather than a Republican, almost regardless of how one measures performance. Let's bring in MSNBC anchor and senior business correspondent, our economic guru, Stephanie Ruhle. So, Stephanie, why is this, and why is Donald Trump continuing to do so much better in polling on the economy than Joe Biden? Is it really about the economy?
It's about the stock market. Here's what the president is great at: branding. And the market has done exceptionally well, but I want you to take a close look. I mean, just yesterday, the S&P 500 hit record highs, but it's not all publicly traded companies. The truth is, it's a tiny fraction. It's the monster companies that were doing well before the pandemic and are doing exceptionally well now. Think about Amazon, Apple, Walmart. They have a disproportionately large influence over those indices. And the president keeps pointing to the markets, saying, look how great the economy is. Now, one thing that we often mistake, where we say, listen, only investors are making money. You've got millions of Americans. I'm talking firefighters, teachers, who pay attention to their retirement accounts. They pay attention to their 401ks. And this president, Donald Trump, is going to tell America, you like these returns in the stock market? They will all be gone if Biden is the president. Now, that's not necessarily the case. You see investment bank after investment bank saying, actually, what investors like are regularity, predictability, something they don't get from President Trump. But remember this, people vote in private. And when people feel really good about how their 401ks are doing, how their stock portfolio is, you could see more people than are willing to admit they're voting for Donald Trump who like this market performance, and they could vote for him again.
There's still millions of Americans who are not in the stock market and who can't pay for basics right now. They don't have health care. They can't go to the dentist. And there are still a lot of Trump voters who are also not participating in the stock market, but still cite the economy as a reason to vote for him.
30 million
more questions
Americans
and answers
have no
here
job.
on this. Exactly. And they can't pay for things like rent or food or health care.
And that is why education and information is so important. People go through all these machinations as to why does it go? The economy does better under Democrats than under Republicans, and the answer is actually simple. If Republicans move more money up the ladder, it means there's less money from the people who actually spend it, and economic activity is determined by those who spend. So therefore, if all the money is being spent that goes down to the low end, while when you take it up to the high end, all those people save the money or they invest in another country or whatever, of course the economy does better under Democrats. But again, why would these people that would still make good with these other people doing good not want it that way? Because what happens is this: if you keep the lower side of your economy depressed, you continue to own those people. You continue to enslave those people antiseptically, because you can pay them less, you can do less for them, and you get even more. That's what it's all about. It is more sinister than people dare believe. And that is why information is so important. And that is why we have to get the message out. By the way, folks, if you've just joined us, if you've joined us for a while, I ask you so kindly to please share this program on your wall, on your page, on your Twitter, on your Tumblr, on your Instagram, everywhere. Because unless we get this stuff out there, all that false information, the economy does better under Republicans, all of that's false. From a mathematical point of view, it is false. You can draw the charts. That information is available for everybody. Welcome aboard as well, Norman Reynolds, and welcome aboard as well, Cristina Oliveira, and welcome aboard, Lee Grant. Welcome aboard, Daniel Ledoux. Let's see who else is new. I think those are the new ones that just came in. Yeah, folks, if you're just joining us, I ask you so kindly to please share the program on your wall, on your threads, on your Instagram, on your everywhere. And the reason why, again, is look, a lot of progressives, we sit back and wonder how it is a lot of these people can think the way they do. And the reason they think the way they do is because there are not enough of us creating a critical mass to inform them. So if you notice, and it drives me crazy with Trump, right? Over and over and over again, Trump repeats the same thing over, and people think, oh, does he not have anything else to say? First of all, yes, he doesn't have anything else to say because he doesn't have a lot of intellect. But still, the repetition thing actually works. It becomes a reality. So when he comes out and he says, the election is going to be fraudulent, post office. The election is going to, voting by mail is fraudulent. Voting by mail, and he keeps saying it. And every so often we said, no, voting by mail, you can prove it is. What we have to do is we have to have not the answering narrative. In other words, we don't get the defensive narrative. We have to have the positive narrative. And that narrative is Donald Trump is trying to steal the election because he controls the post office. You have to keep that message out every time. Every Democrat, every progressive, everybody that believes in the reality needs to make sure the first thing that comes out of their mouth, Donald Trump is attempting to steal the election by controlling the post office and making sure that your medicines are late and making sure that your checks are late. He wants to do this, and that's what he's doing. And you keep repeating these same things over and over and over again. You don't wait to answer Donald Trump. You make the assertive argument, because that is what Donald Trump does. Donald Trump knows how to do it very well. And you notice what when Stephanie Rule was talking to Katie Tur, she said, wait a minute. If the economy always does better under Democrats, and this is proven fact, right? The Republicans shot the economy in the Bush-Reagan years. It was resurrected by Clinton. Bush number 2 crashed the economy again, resurrected by who? Obama. Now Donald Trump crashes the economy again, and here we hope that Biden has to come in and fix it again. It's amazing. Every time these guys come into power, they leave with a shot economy. And then we clean it up. And in the process of cleaning it up, for the pain that many have to take, many times we pay the price for it. Let's get the argument right. Let's get the narrative right. These guys know nothing about economy. They do know a whole lot about stealing. They do know a whole lot about taking the wealth of others and moving it up forward. That is what they are very good at. And the person who can always encapsulate that perfectly is our good friend Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She used her 60 seconds of progressive identification and 90 seconds to go ahead and nominate Bernie Sanders, etc., like she was supposed to do. By the way, there's a controversy. A lot of Democrats started to raise hell on Ocasio-Cortez because she went ahead and said, I nominate or I second Donald Trump. That was her job. That was a position they gave her to talk about. And the fact that the centrists ate her alive. If you take a look, I put this stuff on Daily Kos. It only has 60 or so or 50 or so likes, and it has over 180 comments. Mostly from a whole lot of people who don't understand the process that they think they do. But anyhow, let's listen to AOC because she encapsulates the progressive message perfectly. Let's go ahead and do that right now.
Good evening, bienvenidos, and thank you to everyone here today endeavoring towards a better, more just future for our country and our world. In fidelity and gratitude, to a mass people's movement working to establish 21st century social, economic, and human rights, including guaranteed health care, higher education, living wages, and labor rights for all people in the United States. A movement striving to recognize and repair the wounds of racial injustice, colonization, misogyny, and homophobia, and to propose and build reimagined systems of immigration and foreign policy that turn away from the violence and xenophobia of our past. A movement that realizes the unsustainable brutality of an economy that rewards explosive inequalities of wealth for the few at the expense of long-term stability for the many, and who organized a historic grassroots campaign to reclaim our democracy. In a time when millions of people in the United States are looking for deep, systemic solutions to our crises of mass evictions, unemployment, and lack of health care, in el espíritu del pueblo and out of a love for all people, I hereby second the nomination of Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont for President of the United States of America.
Wow, that was beautiful. I mean, it probably hurt a lot of feelings to hear the truth, but was that beautiful? Because it was done with the necessary words that didn't really hurt people, but it just told the truth of what we are. Look, we're trying to become a better country. And we have a lot of people working on us becoming a better country. And that's what we would do. But let's not deny who we've been. Let's not deny what we've done. And that's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is doing there. And you know what? If you're a church person, they always tell you, confess your sins. And after you confess your sins, the Lord will wash your blood clean, right? We should do that as a country. Why is it so bad to do it as a country when it is done in church all of the time? And it's the people in the church, evangelicals specifically, who don't like us to do these things, but it's very important. But anyway, Ocasio-Cortez was perfect in that. Her teacher told her when she said, I only got 60 seconds, her second grade teacher told her, look, Alexandria, you know that you were very good in my class at poetry or whatever it was, literature or whatever. You will do just fine. I am sure you will use that time effectively. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez used that amount of time effectively. Now, I talk a lot about millennials and Gen Xers and all these folks because I think our future is in their hands. We all know that, of course, they're younger. But not only that, their thought process, their morality, the way they think, they don't have a lot of the hang-ups that was imparted on us by generations of evil. And I saw a host do something today on MSNBC that really touched my heart. It just made me feel so warm to see this woman, this young woman, the words that she had to say. So let me play this and then we'll take it on the other side. But it was simply wonderful. Don't dare tell me America isn't changing. Don't dare tell me that people aren't becoming more aware. Don't dare tell me that our young people, the ones that are coming up now, or millennials, or Gen Xers, or and all these other, or Gen Zs, don't tell me that they don't see the real picture. Because I tell you what, that's who I work with the most. And what I find is that they're well aware, and I want to show you something that normally you wouldn't see on an MSNBC or a CBS or ABC from a host. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
I wanted you to meet this little girl. She's the reason I've been out for a bit. This is Monroe, my new daughter. She was born on March 9th. But when she left the hospital 2 days later, thank you, Frank, it felt like Frank and Ro and I were walking into the apocalypse scene in a virus disaster movie. Remember that day Tom Hanks announced he had COVID? The NBA suspended its season. The president delivered a primetime pandemic address. And you know what happened 2 days after that, on March 13th? Police officers killed Breonna Taylor, an injustice that is now part of a national reckoning over race, demanding that people like me confront their privilege. And for a new mom, here's one. I'm alive, and so is my kid. And if the color of my skin were different, I'd be twice as likely to have died giving birth. That is an outrageous public health disparity. And so are the disparities we're seeing with the coronavirus. All of which is to say, that week in March changed my world, sure, but it changed everybody's. And the question has been and is now how we handle it. How we hold ourselves accountable, how we do the work, and especially how we hold our leaders accountable, our lawmakers, our president. That is why I am glad to be back with you at work with plenty of it ahead. Thank you for being here with me.
I tell you why this is important. And I've been talking to a lot of people about this. Since this pandemic started, I see a lot of people on TV with their laptops and their kids around, and they're saying things like how difficult it is that they have to be with their kids and their laptops on the desk, and they're working from home, and the monotony of working from home, and all these kinds of things, right? And looked at a friend and said, let me tell you something. These people are out there complaining about how difficult it is, right? These are the people that don't have to be working at the grocery stores. They don't have to be working serving food or anything like that. In other words, they are not considered the essential workers, but they're the highest paid workers. And many of them you see on TV, which is the ones that ABC and CBS put on the morning shows. Oh, this mother with her laptop, she wants to get back to work because it's so boring here, or you can't do a lot of work with the kids around. And then I saw this today when Hallie Jackson comes out. She was on maternity leave. She got good maternity leave. She got good care for her kid. And she didn't come out and say, I am glad to be back because, it's time to be back or anything. In other words, she wasn't just self-serving. She saw her privilege. She saw that she had it better than most. And it wasn't a sense of guilt in her words. It was a sense in, why not this for everybody else? And that is what we are fighting for. That is what we are fighting for. Everybody can have a decent quality of life. If we didn't allow the type of gradation that we have, where you have a 1% that is taking just about everything, within the 9% that's the guarding the gates to make sure that they are protected. We pay them very well to keep the super well paid and the pilferers protected. And then the next 10% of the 20%, we make them whole. And the rest cannot see a $400 bill without panicking. What Hallie Jackson, I know Hallie Jackson she probably was not thinking a whole lot of what I'm saying right now. Not specifically, but inside her. The fact that she came out with that type of a statement says a whole lot about the character of people who would then be there when we are making the changes necessary. They wouldn't be there to stop it. They wouldn't put barriers in front of those that are attempting to make life better for all. We need a whole lot of her, more of her. And I tell you what, a lot of people in her generation, that is how they think as well. Yeah, that, like I said, when I saw that, that really touched me, because it is something that, one, she didn't have to do. It is something that also, based on some of the folks that watch some of these channels, would be really ready to get into her skin for saying certain things. But she came out and she just said it. And for that, kudos to her, man. Kudos to her for doing that. Anyhow, it is about that time for us to get to El Señor Daniel Cohen, president of Indivisible Houston. So I'll say right now, let's go ahead and let's get busy. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis. I'm here with the one and only president of Indivisible Houston. And you know what? That is only one of the many things Daniel J. Cohen does here in Houston. Daniel J. Cohen, how are you doing, my brother?
Just another day in COVID universe, sir. I'm doing okay overall, though. I'm a fortunate guy. How are you?
I am doing fine, but let me tell you something. I know you so well, and you are normally out there in the field, and to watch you having to stay mostly sort of cooped up, you have to be going crazy, Daniel.
Yeah, I am, but well, I was always going crazy, Egberto. No, I mean, look, man, we're still active. We're still doing things. We're still fighting. We're still doing all the research side of things. We're having conversations like this. And, the other side of it is, if I'm just being totally honest here, I just want everybody to know that, if I need to, I got ways to get out there that
There
are
you
pretty darn.
go, brother. There you go. Hey, listen, you have the well-engineered mask. I'm gonna have to look for that, dude.
It's only for those who go to 60,000 person protests in the wake of police brutality, and only a few, I guess. But no, look, there's stuff that's still going on. There are ways to do things socially distanced. There were 25 people distanced out in front of John Cornyn's office yesterday for the 184th week of the John Cornyn Tuesday protest cruise. Weekly John Cornyn Tuesday protests. They were calling for, preserving the post office and saving the U.S. Postal Service, and bringing attention and pressure and awareness of that. So there are people that are out there. This Friday at 7:30 a.m. At the JP Court on Chimney Rock Drive, just south of Westheimer, there's going to be people out there who are going to be demanding an end to evictions. So people are masked up. They're sanitizing their hands. They're socially distanced, and they're rising against evictions, because for a lot of people, that's life or death for them too. And so there's some of this stuff that is still happening. There are street actions still around the United States, and precautions are being taken to the best degree possible. But people aren't staying inside right now entirely. Some of them are flagrantly breaking COVID policies, and then other people are going outside but are actually taking precautions as well, but still showing up to apply pressure to their elected representatives.
That is actually pretty good, because there's a time Trump and them were saying things like, "Oh, look at all those protesters. How comes you're complaining about when our people do things?" I'm like, your people don't want to wear masks. If you take a look at a lot of our protests, not everybody, but a large percentage of them are actually wearing masks. They don't live in fogland. They actually live in today's reality. But Daniel, two things I want to talk to you about. First of all, I want to get your impressions of the Democratic convention before we go into the other issue. What are your thoughts?
I'm not watching it. I'm being totally straightforward when I say that. I'm just telling people right now, I'm not watching it, because I already know where I stand on things. I think I stand pretty close to where you stand on things, which is that, we have this, look, people use this a lot. They say, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And there's something behind there. Two interpretations of that, or two reasons someone might say that. One of them is very reasonable, and the other one is not reasonable at all. The very reasonable interpretation of it is vote for your best available option. And the less reasonable version of it, that I think a lot of maybe your listeners would identify with as well, is, don't let progress get in the way of, a problem that kneecapped that progress in the first place, because there's something much worse standing behind the door. Mm-hmm. And if you say it kind of with the second, a lot of people say it with that second implied meaning, and don't realize that they're doing it, because I don't personally think that we are actually talking about something perfect in the first place, and I don't think we're talking about something necessarily good in the first place. It's not that I thought a more progressive candidate was ever going to be perfect. In fact, all of the fans of progressive candidates always say the same thing, that once they get elected, your job is not finished, and showing up and going to the voting booth is only one very small part of what you do in the first place. There's never been a perfect politician. I don't know one left-leaning voter, high information voter, who would ever say, I got my elected official, and then throw their hands up, especially after the Obama presidency, when we realized that for the person you put in there in the first place may or may not be at the level that you wanted them to be at, and also that they can't even do the job alone to begin with, that you need a movement and you need support behind it and all of those things. And we don't necessarily think that the option that we're going to wind up with is all that good anyway. It's just that this is kind of where we're at, and this is where we land on things. I did see there was that kind of manufactured crisis by NBC when AOC.
Yes.
This is why I don't watch this stuff. It's just, if I'm going to get my blood pressure up, I try to do it over the stuff that I can, that I can really immediately impact and things like that. I throw no shade to people who are watching it, whether they're getting something positive out of it or if they're doing media critique and analysis. That's cool. But just for me right now, I'm trying to focus on the work that's in front of us, the grassroots work that's in front of us. And I kind of know, I don't have a lot of the time for the DNC in my own world and the stuff that I'm working on. So I haven't really been watching it.
Well, let me tell you this. I think I understand exactly what you're saying. I have to watch it. I have to
Sure.
watch it. But but the thing about it is, you hit on a very important number, that we know what we're getting, so therefore we know what we're gonna do. But our job itself is to go out there and make progressive change, irrespective of what's elected. It doesn't really matter. So you're pushing forward, like all of us should be pushing forward. Whoever is in office, we are going to continue to push forward.
Oh yeah, and there's other stuff too. I mean, there's making sure that the world knows, for example, and you have a national viewership. So if anybody saw Art Acevedo on that first day, the
Yes.
hero chief Art Acevedo, take it from somebody, from the people on the ground that are paying attention to that. Art Acevedo is no hero. Art Acevedo invoking the name of George Floyd is a tragedy. That he was able to do that and get away with it on national television. That he was part of an opening panel is a shame. It's shameful that that's happened.
Explain why. Because a lot, let me tell you something, Daniel. I've been preaching recently on the police officers, and I finally came out and said police officers are not the friends of POCs, period. And I make every attempt not to use police officers. If for some reason somebody have a gun on my head, I hope to see one. I'm not, we want to see the police officers in that regards, but I try to stay away from them because I always feel that they see me as a suspect first. And and it doesn't matter if it's a white officer, a black officer, or otherwise. That's how many people of color feel.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you see these actions that are taking place, shutting down JP courthouses and standing in front of courts and like not letting landlords in to file eviction claims, because the entire system right now is stacked against people who can't pay their rent, and they're just going to get thrown out on the street. Well, the person who's going to get called in to break that chain and arrest those people will inherently be the state, and that arm of the state will be the police. And so there's some of these circumstances where the inherently, like, doing a job is going to position the people versus the muscle, and the muscle
Right.
will be the police departments. But even if you in addition to that, Chief Acevedo himself has all kinds of specific problems, that he's twisted all of the narrative surrounding George Floyd protests in Houston. He said that there were out-of-towners coming in that were causing disruption. That's not true. He said that there were people who were causing mayhem in the first place. A lot of them actually were like, what originally happened is people kneeled in the streets that were essentially shut down because there was a big protest that day, and because COVID-19 shut down a lot of the businesses around there, they kneeled in that street, and then they used kneeling in the street because you're blocking a road that is already not being used as justification to roll on those protesters. There were people who were asking to leave. They weren't allowed to leave. There was some sort of gas released. We haven't gotten to the bottom of what it is because they bury the FOIAs. We don't know what the PR budget of HPD is because they bury that too. He's doing, panels out in the street where he's like sitting on a metal chair. There's like an 11-year-old kid leading the march, and there's Chief Acevedo walking alongside him. He's demonizing people. They're defaming people. There are people who are in the prison for 30 hours. They put them in jail 30 hours, no mask, no clean water, and then he walks away as some sort of hero cop. I mean, in 2016, this was a guy who, as Austin Police Department chief, thanked Alex Jones after going on his show for supporting the Austin Police Department. Alex Jones is out here whipping up a fascist far-right fringe frenzy. And this is the guy that's supposedly in charge of our public safety. If you ask anybody down at the protests I mentioned, the weekly protests, the Tuesday John Cornyn crew, there are a lot of people out there who are older. There are a lot of people who voted for Clinton, and liked Clinton, right? Like actually liked her quite a bit. So you can see that in some cases, maybe their ideology is not super radical or leftist, but they're starting to see that there's 6 and 7 cop vehicles sometimes down there. They had a paddy wagon for a few weeks after the George Floyd protests. They're getting over policed, and maybe like it's starting to change the way they look at some of this stuff. Over time they see that there's this great waste, and it's obviously a hostile posture that's being implemented by this system. And in the wake of George Floyd, Houston gave HPD a 4% raise. Acevedo said we've already been defunded. Look at the numbers over the years. It's all lies. It's all nonsense. But he's been on The View, and he's been,
Let me
so
tell you something that really got me irate, though, Daniel. The governor comes out yesterday and he says any municipality or city that reduces their police budgets will get their property taxes frozen. What do you think about that? I mean, it's amazing how the state has really come down hard to ensure that policing gets all the funding it needs, but when it comes to giving psychological services or all these other kinds of services, we're always ready to cut them.
Oh yeah, no, that he would never say if you cut your mental health services, then we'll make sure to freeze your property taxes. He would never say if you cut your local health care expenditures, then we'll freeze your property taxes. He'd never say if you cut your parks department money, then we'll freeze your property taxes. It was obviously political posturing by a guy who's trying to distract us from the fact that he put a secret cabal, not so secret because of the good work of investigative reporters, but basically a cabal of his billionaire buddies and donors and political hacks in charge of his COVID-19 response strategy. And he's gotten people killed to the tune of thousands of people in one of the worst responses to COVID-19, not just in the United States, but in an isolated territory anywhere in the world. That Greg Abbott has positioned us for failure. He's gotten kids killed. He's gotten elderly folks killed, and has completely dropped the ball in terms of taking care of working families in the state of Texas. And it's only to benefit his rich donor class buddies. So he changes the conversation whenever he can because he screwed up COVID-19. Texas knows it. He has one of the lowest approval ratings that he's ever had before. It's dipped into the 30s. It was like well up into the 50s, no problem. This is a guy that won re-election by 20 points over the opposition. It doesn't matter if you run Mickey Mouse versus an incumbent governor in the state of Texas, a deep red state, in 2018 to win by 20 points, and then now all of a sudden you're 15, 20 points underwater. I mean, that tells
Texas,
you everything you do.
Yeah, Texas is gonna. I think people tell me I'm crazy. I think Texas is going to surprise a whole lot of people in the 2020 election, not to speak about the 2022 election when we elect a governor again. So
I think you're gonna see. If I don't know, we'll see. We're all fighting in terms of tipping the state and increasing voter participation and outreach. But I'll tell you this: those individual seats are going to start flipping. You're going to see these small territories that were R12 and R15 and stuff like that. And I mean areas where everybody can agree, right? Because it doesn't matter whether you're like kind of over toward the center of the Democratic Party or you're like a leftist. You pretty much probably believe that Moses is not a founding father. Right? Like there's some easy stuff here, right? So those state board of ed seats and stuff like that went into Republican hands by 12, 15 points before, I think you're going to start seeing some tighter races, and some of that stuff is going to start to flip. And I think you'll see a few of those flip this cycle. And for example, you might see the Texas House flip. They only need 9-10 seats.
I actually think that that's what we're looking at now. Daniel, I have another, you're a thinker, so I want to throw something else at you that I've been thinking about for a long time. Lincoln Project, Kasich, all these Republicans are coming into work and get good speaking positions at the Democratic DNC. AOC gets 60 seconds, right? I have a theory, and I don't know, again, I haven't really put it out there, but I have a theory that the Republican Party is a goner. It's a Trumpist party going forward, and I don't think there is a resuscitation of that party. My hunch is that all these right of center Republicans are going to be coming to populate the Democratic Party, uniting with the left of center and centrist Democrats, and both together try to weasel out of all the big things we as progressives want within the party. What's your thoughts on that?
I think you're basically right? The right of center types, I don't think are joining the party because of that. I think they are saving their skin, and I think they do oppose us ideologically, and they believe that stuff. It's not I don't know that. I think actually like the Kasichs of the world, I don't think it's like machinated that they're like, I'm joining to kill Medicare for all. I just think that that's the function of what's going to happen. I think that the centrist and left center types at the highest ranks do very intently try to kill those policies because they believe that it would undercut their donors, and they believe that it also would undercut their electoral advantage. The electoral advantage side of it, I think that changes from day to day. I know a lot of times progressives say Medicare for all is super popular, and I know that a lot of the centrists say, well, we can't go that far because then we'll look like we're wild. I think that stuff is really complicated, and it actually depends on the person and the place in a given day and kind of how
And
things
how
are,
the question is asked.
how the question is asked. I think that stuff is very complicated, and I tell people that if you hear me say something, I don't say it because it's popular with the electorate anyway. Like, that's not my job. That's somebody
Right.
else's job to figure
Right.
that out. There's a lot of people that do. I think that, but I do think that the donor pressure has a lot to do with it, because we know that we have a paper trail where there's a lot of people who try to kill Medicare for all behind the scenes, who are working for insurance and pharmaceutical companies, and they have deep pockets, and we see that a lot of their money flows into the pockets of people who are at the top of the Democratic Party and the elected officials that are at the top of the Democratic Party. So
And
got to be an influence.
yeah, no, I agree with you that it's at the top, because, and when we talk about if you go down lower, I have this thing that I do, and I kind of wrote it up in my new book, It's Worth It, and where I actually talk to people about saying, don't talk about Medicare for all, don't talk about all these issues, start talking about what all these issues do. Anyway, I think, as it turns out, what you're going to find is that when you start talking to people about their wants and their needs, that's where we get some equalization, some merging, right? But when you start giving it labels, you run into trouble. So those are the kinds of arguments that I've been having with even people on the right, and being very successful at it, right? And that's what I put in the new book that I just wrote. Now, I think it is up on all of us, you, me, and all the activists out there, to sort of do just that. And I'm not asking Daniel to go meet with some Trumpist right people. You're not going to do that. That's not your place. That's my
No,
place.
that's not my place. No,
Yeah.
but I what I appreciate about what you wrote, and what I will say is, I have a friend whose mom has been driving him crazy with the stuff, and she's way out there. And so he said, I've just been trying to talk to her, and I don't know how. And I said, well, I haven't read it yet, but here's a great read. And it is something I would read, because one day I might wind up, when, COVID conditions are over, I might wind up sitting on a bus. And if I have to sit there for 5 minutes, if I can make up a little bit of territory, it won't be super comfortable, but I'm here for a fight. So I may as well be equipped.
That is, I think that is important. But again, we're on the right side. Anyhow, lastly, one last thing I want to talk to you about. You were irate, Daniel. Talk to me about this new Republican convert to the love of Senor Biden, who actually used to put kids in cages.
So yeah, this really drove me out there, right? Is that, it's bad enough. It seems like it's worse after another. First you had the Bloombergs, right? And then you had the Steve Schmidt crowd and all that stuff. And, and at some point, there was like Bill Kristol and all these different people that came over. Now, Miles Taylor, who's the chief of staff for Kirstjen Nielsen, writes this op-ed in the Washington Post saying that he had seen firsthand the horrors of the Trump administration, and that we must get rid of them. So this is the chief of staff for Kirstjen Nielsen. So the person who not only helped her implement the DHS child separation policy, oversaw all of the people getting killed in private prisons that were contracted to ICE, and all of the other horrors, and the tear gassing of people at the border, every other horror that was happening when she helmed DHS. And he turns around and basically he jumps. It's the most obvious rat from a sinking ship editorial that you've ever read in your entire life. Washington Post's fact checkers, and Washington Post ran the editorial now for Miles Taylor, but their fact checkers, a couple years, when the DHS policy came out, Nielsen says, we are not separating families at the border, period. The Washington Post fact checkers called that Orwellian. They called that
It was a lie.
And he was her chief of staff at the time, covering her 6. So now 2 years later, writes an editorial saying that the Trump administration has got to go. What really set me off about this, though, is that there are people out there that say, whatever it takes, whatever support we can get for Joe Biden to get Trump out of there, that's the support we should take. And I'm like, let me get this straight. One of the reasons you think Donald Trump is so horrible, and you're right about this, is that he's separating families. He's instituted a family separation policy that takes an older system that was already bad, but makes it that much worse. And this was a guy that helped implement it, right? And he leaves and suddenly says, yeah, that guy over there is the bad guy. Let's throw him out. And you suddenly lionize him and accept his help at that point. I mean, it's like I said so what really, at the end of this conversation, I said to somebody, yeah, sure, let's accept whatever help it takes to get Biden out, right? We'll take his ICE chief. Maybe he'll endorse Joe Biden. What about Roy Moore? Maybe Roy Moore can endorse Joe Biden. We can all cheer about it. And he said, whatever gets rid of Trump. And I was just like, you guys lost the plot. You completely lost the plot because you can project all of the evil onto a man instead of a philosophy. And if you've gone that far with it, then you don't really care about the people that are being impacted, and you don't really care about the problems that are occurring. What you care about is literally just making sure that the man goes away, not the problems.
But you know, Daniel, I'm going to say something that always gets me in trouble. But the man is nothing but what we have always been on steroids. So he gave, I mean, it was like the knee of that police officer on that guy's neck, on George Floyd's neck. That was something that everybody could see on steroids, because that is how we feel. The cops always have the boot on our necks. The problem is nobody sees it. America saw it. And when America saw it, they said, could that really be us? And that's why you see things like Black Lives Matter immediately increased in their favorability ratings and all of that. That's my thought. Go ahead.
The activists did great work before that to set it up, and to get those policies out there, so that way that when unfortunate things happen and people say, what do we do? The solutions are popularized. And when, I mean, you're absolutely right that none of that was new. And you're right that this is not entirely new. I think it's worth mentioning, it's a symptom of a larger problem, but symptoms can become their own cause. If you have a condition and a condition gives you a particularly bad symptom, that symptom can then lead to other symptoms that are really bad. And I think that you do sometimes have to address the bleeding artery, so to speak, that was caused by whatever the underlying condition was in the first place. But yeah, I agree with you.
Let me tell you one other thing though, Daniel, and this is where I try to live now with both my activism and what I do. I try now to realize that we are what's that word that when people can influence you? People can influence us easily.
Susceptible to influence?
Yes.
Okay.
We're susceptible to influence. We're susceptible to groupthink. We're susceptible to all these things. And there are some of us who have the power to be.
I got it.
Impressionable. Exactly. There you go. Thank you. I know you would come up with it, Daniel. I know you would come up with it. Anyhow, so what I try to do with my version of activism is give everybody, whoever you are, the benefit of the doubt as being someone who has been that way. In other words, impressionable, etc. Now, after you've been presented with the truth and you've been presented with a side, that's only after then would I judge. So that's what I try in dealing with people with my activism. I know you don't go that far, but that's okay. I'm still here.
You got a heart of gold, Egberto.
Brother, let me tell you, give me a closer because I got to get out of here, process this.
All right, right on. So if you want to learn more about what's going on down here in Houston, if you want to get involved, there's never been a more critical time, but there will always be a critical time, but there's never been a more critical time. So visit us at indivisiblehouston.org. That is One Nation Indivisible, Houston, like the fourth largest city in the United States, .org. Long live AOC. Let's go make the world a better place.
Daniel, thank you so kindly. It's always fun talking to you. It's always informative talking to you. And we always learn a lot when you're on the show. Thank you so kindly, brother.
Thank you. Lots of love, man.
Okay, I hope you like that. All right, let me go ahead and start talking to my brothers and sisters out here. See what you've been talking about. Man, have you been talking? All right, let's see. Let's go from let me introduce everybody first. I got most of the folks up top already, but let me bring in, I think, Norman Reynolds. I don't think you were here before. Or Lee Grant, I don't think you were here before. Rose William, welcome aboard, Rose. Roberto Luis, mi hermano panameño, welcome aboard, my brother. Bruce Pollard, welcome aboard. Let's see who else is here that I haven't called. If I haven't called you, just drop your name in the thing. Lee Grant, I think I called you before. Just drop your name in and I will call you out. I like to make sure and dar recomendación a toda mi gente. Give notice to all of my people that are here online, on air, wherever. Okay, let's see if there's anything. AOC gave a 90-second speech on issues, then endorsed Bernie Sanders at the end from Michael Rudnin. Yes, that's what occurred. Maywood says, okay, that was a reply to Michael Rudnin. Let's see. Cristina Oliveira said, oh, that was a reply as well. You're dangerous. I'm not sure what that conversation, what was that conversation about? British MCP, Democrats don't vote, but I think this year they will. I actually think you are right, Brige. I actually agree with you. Norman says, hey, survivors. That is Norman's new come by. I love it, Norman. Hey, survivors. Yeah, we're surviving. But we're not only going to survive, we're going to excel. That's coming next, brothers. That's coming next. Okay, traditionally, businesses have always done much better under Democrats. Maywood, absolutely so. And the statistics, the numbers are there. That isn't even something up for debate, right? But like I mentioned earlier, the reason why nobody wants to accept that is because there is reason to keep us tamped down. So, I mean, it's not that we want everybody to be doing well, which we can. We have the resources to ensure that everybody on this planet has a decent life. Is that we want the distribution to be very much skewed. Some of us are greedy. Just a few. I mean, when the people talk about capitalism and so on, they say, oh, people are greedy. Greed is good. Greed is bad. And most people aren't greedy. If most people were greedy, those people that are greedy up top that don't have much upstairs, they wouldn't be there because the greedy people, since we're all greedy, would have made sure they wouldn't be there. So, I mean, all the arguments that we've learned over time have been wrong. There are so many arguments that have been wrong over time for just too long. Okay, let's see. Daniel Ledo says, does that positive narrative include your advice to get mean? I never got advice to get mean. I got advice to be reciprocative. That's the advice that I give. In other words, I didn't say I don't believe in turning the other cheek. I believe in strengthening your cheek and making sure that if your cheek is damaged, that you don't take that sitting down. There's nothing not kind about that. I'm saying you always approach people with kindness. You always do things that way. But by the same token, you don't let somebody break your jaw. I mean, you'll be foolish to do that, right? Okay, Roberto Lewis. Trump will use what it takes to confuse everyone. Misleading will keep him to get to folks to stay with him. That's so important to know Economics 101 to understand how power structure works. Exactamente, hermano Roberto. You're absolutely right, sir. Norman says, Lee, the important thing is that we here know the truth, right? The economy and the livelihoods of the middle class, where we are, does better under Democrats. And what we have to do, Norman, and I think we can all agree on this, is we have to find a way ourselves to go ahead and put that into words that people understand. And Paul Fleming, welcome aboard. I don't think I called you out before. ATL checking in. That's what he says. And then, of course, we have Rebecca Lynn. Keep talking. Of course, we're going to keep talking, Rebecca. Of course, we are going to keep talking. Bridge MVCP says black newborns 3 times more likely to die when cared for by white doctors. I saw that study, and I want to understand that. I have to talk to my daughter about that one because my daughter is doing her rotation right now in OBGYN. And I want to see what she thinks about that study because that's an important study right there. Okay, let's keep moving on down. Maywood says, not us a reply that Maywood have. Bruce was talking about solving that problem. Okay, para ver. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to apply my trade. Really, Bruce? You apply your trade all the time, Bruce. Come on now. Stop being so damn humble. You're a very smart guy that does all kind of stuff. All right, let's see. Para ver, where I want to bring original stuff, not people talking to each other. So forgive me if I'm kind of scanning through a bit. Para ver. Okay. I'm coming down. Bruce says, actually, I taught somebody how to fish. I'm from Panama. You know, guys, I've never really fished for any significant amount of time. And my country is surrounded by water. Well, on 2 sides, very much so. All right, Lee Grant, that was an answer. Can someone forward this to Lee Grant? Somebody forward that to Lee Grant, please, for Senor Rudnin. Okay, let's keep going down. Let's keep going down. Michael Redden says, Michael Steele, when you ally yourself with people who lie to the people about Iraq, weapons of mass destruction, connections to 9/11, led to a war of aggression that destabilizes the Middle East, killed millions, made homeless tens of millions, lost $6 trillion on our national treasury. What does that make? I know, I agree. Although I don't mind having the Lincoln Project beat up Trump, right? But what I'm saying is, don't let that fool us into believing that they are our friend. And you guys remember the show I did about that. Rose says, unfortunately, a lot of the young are totally disgusted by the hypocrisy of both the right and the left. Not that there is a left, let's say right center. Thank you, Rose. And feel it won't make any difference. Biden is still a jerk overall. Agreed. But let me tell you, I'm still advising our brothers and sisters, the young ones, let's go ahead and vote Democratic, vote for Biden. We have a lot to do after that, and we will be there not to abide or not to let these guys do the center-right thing, but to be right back out there in the streets to get the right thing done, but at the same time educating Americans so that because remember, they're misinformed from the media that they watch, right? We know better. We have to, with kindness, with respect, with empathy, with a sense of humility, and I write all of that in my book. So please go get my book. Anyway, I got to get out of here pretty soon. So let's see. Norman says, there is a case to burn all Republican lifeboats without the stand. We will legitimize disingenuous bad actors. That is a true statement, but that needs some more expanding because that need a lot more expanding, Norman. Breach says, just elect a Oman for president. We get rid of all. John Stanley, welcome aboard. Stink. I don't know why to stink, John. You have to tell me. You can't just say it. Michael Rudnan says, greed that causes those at the bottom to suffer is bad. That is true. That's what we know. Imagine the moment the CEOs I get it, Rudnan. I get it, brother. All right, let's see. Rose Williams says, that's why I like teaching. Rose, and you know my belief, teaching is the most important profession, bar none. Bar none, I think teaching, what would we do without teaching? Anyway, folks, please remember that my book, the one that you see on the screen, it's worth it. How to talk to your right-wing relatives, friends, and neighbors. Please go ahead and get the book. Help support our movement. And here is the link to go get the book. I just put the link to get the book on the screen, or rather not on the screen, but I put it in the feed. So please get our book. But more than anything else, we need patrons. We need people who would subscribe to Politics Done Right. How do I subscribe to Politics Done Right? You go to politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. Politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. If you're on YouTube, feel free to click that $ and do a super chat and say, I support this program, because this program is there to help us all out. You can also support us via PayPal. You can go to, how do you do that? Go to politicsdoneright.com/PayPal, politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. Facebook is now allowing us to take subscriptions, so please go to politicsdoneright.com/Facebook, politicsdoneright.com/Facebook. And of course, you can go to our store. Our store is at where? politicsdoneright.com/store, politicsdoneright.com/store. Here's our cup. Get our cup. Get our t-shirts, get our books, all of that you can find at Politics Done Right, including As I See It, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. The new book is also at our store, which is It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors. Folks, we cannot do this without you. We need your support to continue doing this over and over again. I thank you so kindly for spending this time with me. I love you all. I respect you all. You name it. This is something we've got to do together. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willis. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.